Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of Awaken the Guardian. Today's topic: the priority of life. So, I want to take you back a few years ago. I was working in our central district with a good friend of mine. We're actually part of a project. And as part of this project, we got the opportunity to ride two-man, i.e. ride together, which for those of you who have had the opportunity to do this with somebody you actually like, it's pretty amazing. I'm not going to lie. And he and I are, again, having a blast, out doing what cops do best, right? Finding the bad guys and taking them to jail, and we were really enjoying it. So we had a really good shift. We had a really good day, and it's getting towards the end of the shift. If I remember right, it was somewhere between 11 o'clock and midnight. And we're back at the station. We've taken our vests off. We're all sweaty and stinky and laughing it up with everyone else in the report writing room. And we're sitting there and we're talking, and all of a sudden on the radio comes across the call that no one wants to hear. And that was a code that an officer had been shot, officer down. And we were probably, I don't know, maybe 10 miles away from where it happened. Like, ran out to the car, threw our vests on as we're driving away, like blowing through red lights. I remember trying to get updates as to what was going on and everything that was happening, and just like not caring about anything other than getting there as quickly as I could. And I remember as we're burning through lights, I'm looking left, I'm looking right, but I'm really not slowing down that much. And we hit the freeway. And at this moment, at this period of time here in Arizona, they had speed cameras on the freeway. And there was a procession of police cars headed to this call. And as we're going down the freeway, all you see is like the lights flashing. And it was like Christmas. Boom, 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 boom. So you got the red and the blues going one way, and you got the white lights of the camera coming the other. And it was like this weird, surreal moment. Like, nobody was saying anything. We were just driving as fast as we could to get to where we needed to go. And I remember pulling in and running to where it seemed like everyone was congregating, and immediately tasks were being assigned. Hey, this is the house right here, the suspect. We need to evacuate these neighboring houses. We need to make sure that this is clear. We need to stop traffic here. It's like all the little details that go into, okay, what just happened? And what had happened was one of my coworkers had arrived on scene of a domestic and had been shot as he rolled up, like literally getting out of his car, had been shot in the arm. And so we're dealing with that. And luckily he was able to be taken to the hospital quickly. But this whole time I'm thinking, okay, where's the bad guy? What is it we're going to do? Where are the innocent people? What is it that we're going to do with them? And where are the cops? And is anybody pinned down? And what do we need to worry about with them? And just this back and forth of who is it that I'm dealing with and what is it that I need to do with them? And it was a little overwhelming, trying to figure out what to do with each of these groups of people. And at the time, I didn't understand why it was so overwhelming and why I was struggling so much. Obviously, if any of you have been involved in an officer-involved shooting, it's a pretty traumatic incident. And now I'm not saying it was traumatic for me because I wasn't involved in the incident. I showed up afterwards. So that's not the angle that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, as a police officer, how do you respond to something like this? How do you respond to a shooting? How do you respond to a stabbing? How do you respond depending on who is the person that's the victim? How do you respond when it's an innocent person that's been shot? How do you respond when it's a bad guy that's been shot? How do you respond when it's a police officer or another first responder that's been shot? How is it that you respond to each of these incidents? Now, I don't want to leave you hanging, so I'll bring the story back together. So he ended up getting transported to the hospital, had surgery, and was able to make a full recovery and return to duty. Obviously, heavy scarring, and he had to go through quite a bit of physical therapy, but he was able to make it back through on the other side. And on an odd side note, my partner and I, my partner was closer to him than I was, we show up at the hospital, and they actually give us the bullet fragment that was in his arm to take back and package as evidence, which is something that I've never experienced before. So that was unique. But as I was thinking about this call earlier today, it was brought on by something that happened. So this weekend, my daughter had a seizure. And it wasn't something that she's ever really had before. It wasn't something that we were anticipating. It just kind of happened. My wife was talking to her in the hallway, and she just kind of froze a little bit. She fell down to the ground. And if you have ever seen an MMA fight where you see the fighter like with his arm extended, like, but he's like out, like that's what she looked like. And it was for a few seconds, and then she came back to. I didn't remember any of it. But I remember my wife's like, you need to come over here. And I'm like, what happened? And she tells me what happened. I'm like, no, she'll be fine. Like in my mind, I'm saying this, right? No, she'll be fine. She's like, what are you talking about? I want to take her to the hospital right now. I was like, no, I think she'll be fine. I'm telling her now this out loud. And my wife's looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, she's like, what do you mean she'll be fine? I'm like, no, she'll be fine. So luckily, my better half makes the better judgment decision, which was, no, I'm going to take her to the hospital. So she does, takes her to the hospital. They're there for a few hours. And then as I'm getting ready to head over, because I've got the other kids at home, as I'm getting ready to head over, she calls and says that my daughter had another one. But this time that she peed her pants. And so now I'm really starting to freak out as dad freaking out. You know, my daughter's a teenager. So I grab a change of clothes, grab some stuff, some snacks and whatnot, and head over to the hospital. And I remember sitting in the hospital with my daughter who's crying, freaking out, and I'm trying to comfort her. And my wife, you know, is there as well. And the nurse is just kind of going through the motions, if you will. Just nobody was in the room. They were just filling out their paperwork. And so I asked my wife, I'm like, when's the last time the nurse came in here? Well, when's the last time that they checked this? When's the last time that this happened? And what did they say about this? And I'm asking her all these questions, and my wife, unfortunately, doesn't have the answers. Not that she didn't want to have them, because she did, but she didn't have them. So I found myself getting angry and frustrated. And then they come in and tell us, hey, we're going to transfer her to another hospital, to a children's hospital, so they can do some further tests on her. And then I'm like, okay, so I can just throw her in the car and we can drive over there, right? Because this other hospital is like 7 miles up the road, 8 miles. They're like, no, we need to call an ambulance. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And the nurse is like, no, we got to call an ambulance. So we got to wait for the ambulance. Anyway, finally get over to the other hospital. And it takes a period of probably about 14 hours before she actually gets the test done that she needs, which were 2 of them, an EEG and an MRI. And not only get the test done, but actually have a doctor read them. Come to find out, they didn't see or find anything abnormal. So we were able to take her home and kind of keep her under a watchful eye. And we're going to have to follow up and figure out, you know, exactly what's going on. But here's the point of that story and the previous story. What I wanted to share with you guys was this fact that my mind has been so confused over the last couple days. And I finally realized why. And it went back to the previous story that I told you about one of my friends getting shot. In police work, you're taught this idea, this concept of the priority of life. And you cops know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So when we talk about this priority of life, what are we talking about? We're talking about what the amount of risk that we're willing to take in order to help someone else. So for innocent victims, we are going to take the highest amount of risk. For bystanders, a little less, but still a lot. For first responders, again, same category. And then at the bottom of that food chain is what we kindly refer to as the bad guys, right? So when you're responding to a call, subconsciously, you've already determined the amount of risk that you're going to take. You've determined this because you know, based on the call comments, whether it's an innocent victim, whether it's a bystander, whether it's another first responder like fire or EMS, whether it's law enforcement, or whether it's a bad guy. And somewhere in that spectrum, you've already determined what your level of response is going to be. And I want you to think about this because, yeah, you're going to go code 3, but how fast are you going and how much risk are you going to take before you even arrive based on where that person falls in the priority of life scale? And this was a really difficult thing for me to understand for the longest time because I would just, shooting, gas pedal on the right, boom, I'm going, right? And then as experience taught me, there were people who really cared about me showing up, and then there were those who really didn't care. And so after time, or a period of time, my response level changed. And so I assimilated into this idea and this concept of priority of life, right? Victim or innocent bystander, other first responder, PD, and then the bad guy. And I would respond accordingly. And this actually made sense to me. It really did. And it helped me sort my thoughts. It helped me sort what my actions were going to be when I arrived. It really helped me find clarity. But here was the problem. And I didn't realize it at the time. And honestly, I didn't realize it until I was getting close to retiring. The priority of life that we assimilate into our everyday actions as police officers does not include the most important piece of that puzzle. The most important piece of that puzzle is you, is me. We are the most important piece of that puzzle. See, because what's been missing has been where does our life fall in that scale? And so what happens is we start to go through this checklist. Are there any victims? No. Are there any bystanders? No. Police? Yes. Bad guys? Yes. Okay. And so we know how we're going to respond. The problem is that where does our welfare fall? Where does taking care of us fall? And I've had conversations, quite a few, over the last few weeks with police officers, most of which are struggling with something. They're struggling with addiction. They're struggling with lack of connection. They're struggling with lack of fulfillment. They're just struggling. I mean, you think about the culture today for police officers. And I touched on this last week. Not only do they have to deal with threats external, but now they have to deal with threats internal. And so a police officer doesn't know where to turn. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do because he never got taught where he falls on that priority of life scale. And so what happens when we don't know something? Well, we don't deal with it. And so instead of addressing something the first time it comes up, we ignore it. We stuff it down. We hide it. We pretend it doesn't exist. Like, I know you guys all remember those dreams that you've had. Those dreams where bad guys come in or some threat is coming and you've got your gun out and you pull the trigger, and what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. And the threat keeps coming and you try and reload, or you try and grab another weapon, or you try and run away. And you can't. You can't escape. I want you to consider something. I want you to consider that these dreams aren't related to a specific incident in your life. But what they are is your mind trying to tell you that it doesn't have the answer for something right now. And it's struggling. And what's the best way for your mind to communicate that message to you? For your subconscious mind to communicate it to your conscious mind? Well, it's through a story. And so you see this story. The story of the threat coming, the story of you pulling the trigger, the story of nothing happening, the story of you feeling like all is lost, and you wake up and you're sweating and you're breathing heavy. And so the first thing you tell yourself is what? Oh, let me go to the range and practice some more. This is just my mind telling me that I need to practice more. So you do. But guess what? The dream doesn't go away. So what is it? And you struggle with this over and over and over again. In the meantime, while you're searching for the answer in your professional life, your personal life is falling apart. Your personal life is a shit show. And I'm telling you this because this is what I experienced. This was my life. My life was spent trying to figure out what was going on in my professional life, i.e. at work, trying to fix that and trying to make that better, while at the same time, everything's falling apart at home. Everything. Like literally everything. How do you go from this place of wanting to protect and serve, of wanting to help other people, of wanting to make a difference, to loathing life, hating your coworkers, detesting the public, anger and hatred with your wife and your kids, with yourself? How do you get to that point? How does that happen? And see, what we never examine as police officers is the root cause of the problem. Like, we show up, what happened? This happened. Crime? No crime. PC? No PC. Oh, there is? All right, off we go to jail. Dust our hands, write the report, on to the next one. And then we try and take that home. What happened? This, that. PC, no PC. Oh, wait, what's PC at home? Like, I don't know. And for those of you who don't know what PC is probable cause. Is there probable cause to arrest? Let's see. Can I arrest my wife? Can I arrest my kids? Do I arrest my wait a minute. Hold on. What? And so we end up in this confused state where we don't understand exactly what's going on and we don't understand exactly why it's happening. And again, this mind that we have is set up to try and help us what? Solve problems. And it's based on past experience. I don't know if you realize this or not. Your mind is based on past experiences. That's how you react to things. And so when our mind doesn't know how to react to something, what happens? Well, we become just like everybody else. So you've seen the scenes of the school shooting where the kids hide or the kids don't move. They just kind of freeze there. You've seen the kids that try and hide, and you've seen the kids that fight. Like, you've seen all these different responses from kids and teachers in a school setting when there's a school shooting. Why do they have these different responses? Why don't they all respond the same way? Well, I invite you to consider that it's because they have a different set of life experiences. Some of them have been exposed to trauma. Some of them haven't been exposed to these high stress situations. And so they know that they need to do something. But those that haven't, they freeze. They literally freeze. And they become what? They become victims at the will of someone or something else. But I want you to consider that the same thing happens with you as a police officer. When you don't know how to react to something, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to freeze or you're going to flee, right? You're going to run away. And this may be you physically running away, saying, I want a divorce, saying, I don't want to be with you anymore. Or it could be you emotionally running away. I'm going to drink. I'm going to abuse drugs. I'm going to go chase porn or other women because I don't know how to deal with this. And see, nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about why police officers can't respond to certain things or why they have issues responding to certain things. You know, we're just barely beginning to talk about suicides. Suicides among first responders, or suicides among police officers. I mean, if you don't think it's happening, then you're the old ostrich with your head in the sand. It's happening. But why is it happening? See, we've fallen into the same category as the general public, which is we don't understand something or we can't process it. What do we call it? We call it PTSD. I don't know how to deal with this. And so instead of learning how to deal with something or learning how to find a solution, we simply hold on to our label, take some pills, and hope that life gets better. Hope. Hope is a lie. See, because for many years, I hoped that my life would get better. I hoped that my marriage would get better. I hoped that physically I'd get stronger. I hoped that I'd be able to figure out this whole money thing. And I kept hoping, and I kept hoping, and I kept hoping, and nothing was happening. Why? Because I didn't know what to do in the situation. And so I was a runner. I would run away. Things weren't going well at home, I would physically run away. Like I took up marathon running. Like, you want to know the real reason I started running marathons? It wasn't so I could be cool. It wasn't so I could join some club. It wasn't so I could wear those colorful shoes and those little shorty shorts. It was so I could run away from my problems. And when that wasn't working, then I would find other forms. Alcohol, prescription drugs, other women. See, you think that you're unique. You think that no one understands you. You think that no one gets you. But the truth is, you are just like everybody else. Just like me and every other police officer. You got problems. But instead of trying to find a solution to them, you're doing what society tells you to do, which is find a diagnosis and take a pill. See, we mock and make fun of all the people who are addicted to Percocet and Oxys and every other pain medication out there. We make fun of them. We prosecute the doctors. We arrest the druggy kids that have their parents' prescriptions. But at the same time, we are in the same boat. I got to take this medication. Got to take this medication. Got to take this medication. Because medication's the answer of not having to deal with it. So instead of self-medicating, i.e. drugs, alcohol, porn, women, physical exercise, TV, you go to a doctor and you get an actual prescription because that makes you feel better. Well, I'm not self-medicating anymore. The doctor told me I needed this. The doctor said there's something wrong with me and I need this. And this is the way that we start to live our lives. Actually, it's not the way we start to live our lives. It's the start of the death process. We've now given up on our lives. It's not working, so just give me something to sedate. Give me something so I don't have to feel the pain. Listen, I get it. I fall into this category, or at least I used to. I used to fall into the category of thinking that someone else had my answers, that someone else would save me, that someone else would do the work for me, that someone else would make my life easier, that someone else would figure it out for me. And the truth is that I was lying to myself. There was no way that someone or something else was going to find this answer for me. No way. But I didn't know it at the time because no one was telling me otherwise. So why am I saying all this? Am I trying to attack those that have PTSD? Am I trying to attack those that have their lives in shambles right now? If you think that, then I'm sorry, this podcast is not for you. Goodbye. Nice knowing you. I don't have anything for you. But if you're like me and you realize that I'm telling the truth, you realize that you are your own worst enemy, you realize that you have the solution to your own problems, you just need to figure out how to get them out. Well, then guess what? We're on the same page. So you want to know why I created the tactical guide to become an elite? Sure, it sounds cool. I'll be honest, the title for marketing, everybody wants to be elite, right? But the truth is what it does is it takes you and strips you down to your core and starts to examine what's working and what's not working right now in my life. See, because until I could answer those questions, there was no way I was going to change. There was no way anything in my life was going to get better. I was just going to continue running from my problems, hoping that one day I would be able to run away from them. Problem is, guess what? When you're running, you get tired. Oh, well, I'll jump in a car. Problem is, eventually you'll run out of gas. See, you just can't run away. Eventually, you get tired, you run out of gas, and guess what? There you are, instead of full of energy now and facing your problems, completely exhausted, trying to battle these things that are going on in your life. So I invite you to consider something. I invite you to consider, one, the reason your life is the way it is because you have never thought about incorporating yourself into this whole priority of life spectrum. Where is it that I lie in the spectrum? Where does my life lie? How important is it? Now, I'm not going to tell you where to put it, but that's something that you have to figure out. Where do I lie on this spectrum? But this I will share with you. There is no way that your life is going to get better until you start to put yourself on that scale and understand that you have to come before somebody else. You have to. Because you can keep giving and keep giving and keep giving, and pretty soon, you won't have anything else to give. So, what is it that we need? What we need is a plan. We need a plan of what to do when we come across a situation that we don't know how to handle. See, in police work, they teach you how to deal with a traffic stop. They teach you how to deal with a drug investigation, with a rape, with a homicide, with a suicide. Like, you know how to deal with all these calls because, well, guess what? Somebody taught you how to deal with them. Nobody's taught you how to deal with, what do I do when my life's not working? What do I do when all I do is yell and scream at my wife? What do I do when I don't have the motivation to work out anymore? What do I do when it doesn't matter how hard I try, I can't seem to keep any money? See, this is the area that we should focus on. Because when we don't know what to do in these areas, what ends up happening is we start running away. And running away and running away until we can't do it anymore. Listen, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a shrink. I'm not a counselor. What I am is a man with life experience. I am a man who screwed up his entire life, who almost threw it all away because he didn't know what the hell he was doing, because he didn't have an answer to his problems. What I am is a man who took the time, the effort, and the money to figure it out. And my brothers and sisters, I figured it out. I invite you to examine my life now. I invite you to examine my relationship with my wife and my children. I invite you to examine every other aspect of my life. And not because I'm telling you it's a certain way, but because I want to show you it's a certain way. Not an Instagram, Facebook, filtered anything. But my life works. Do you know why my life works? Because I work. Because I figured it out. Because I figured out how it was to have a body on fire. I figured out how to listen to that voice that's inside of me, that gut, that intuition that you guys feel, because I know you feel it. I know you felt it in numerous calls throughout the years, and it's saved your ass more than once. I figured out how to treat my wife like a queen. I figured out how to treat my children instead of a possession, as a legacy. I figured out how to get out of my head when it comes to money. This whole scarcity mindset that cops live with. Listen, I get it. You're dealing with the tools that you have right now. But it's like trying to dig a 30-foot pit with a spoon. Good luck. What if someone could come in and show you how to use a backhoe? How much quicker would that be? See, it's not your desire, because your desire's always been there. It's not your desire that's lacking. What's lacking is the tools. What's lacking is the tactics. What's lacking is the techniques. Just like when you started as a cop, you didn't have them. But someone taught you, and now you can use them. So I invite you, go to awakentheguardian.com. I got this tactical guide to become an elite. It's not going to give you the answers to life, but it will show you how you can find your own answers. And my brothers and my sisters, that's what life's all about. Finding your own answers and pushing forward. As always, reach out to me if you need me. Garrett at warriorguardian.com. GERRITT at warriorguardian.com. Feel free to reach out and we can have a conversation. I'm always open to it. As always, stay safe. That's the end for today's episode. We will see you on the next one.